Hello? You have to press the button? It's good. All right, good evening, everybody. I used to sit here a long time ago on the other side of the table. It's funny to be on this side of the table. Okay, so for tonight's shir, we have a very interesting topic. For those of you that read the signs, you actually did get the wrong idea. So I think on the sign it said the topic is the effect that the Beis Hamikdash had on the place on which it stood. But as we'll see, that's actually the point of the shir is to say the opposite. Okay. So Chassidus talks about at length, many places, about the Maila of the Makom Hamikdash, the place on which the Beis Hamikdash stood. However, the Maila of the Makom Hamikdash is not a result of the Beis Hamikdash standing there. This specialty, this greatness in the Makom Hamikdash was actually present even before the Beis Hamikdash was built. From the very beginning of creation, when Hashem first created the world, Hashem created the Makom Hamikdash different than the rest of the world. Right from the get-go, there was something very unique and special about this Makom Hamikdash. It was a result of this uniqueness and specialty that the Beis Hamikdash was put there. So in fact, it's not that the Beis Hamikdash affected the Makom Hamikdash and elevated the Makom Hamikdash. That's also true. But even before, the Eibishter created the Makom Hamikdash different than the way he created the rest of the world. And because of that, the Beis Hamikdash was standing there. So we're going to look in this shir to understand what was this uniqueness and specialty in the very design, in the very creating and making of the Makom Hamikdash since the beginning of creation. But to do that, we're going to take a very lengthy detour, and we'll come around in the middle of the shir and at the end of the shir to address this idea. The Hakdama, which is in Mamorim of Chassidus, most of the Maimer, the Hakdama is the famous Yesod of Chassidus, which is the idea of Achdus Hashem. Achdus Hashem means the oneness of Hashem, but al pi Chassidus, what it means is simply that nothing exists besides for Hashem. Ein oid milvado. This is the Chiddush of the Baal Shem Tov. Not only is there no other God besides for Hashem, and no other power besides for Hashem, no other force besides for Hashem, there's nothing else, literally, ein oid milvadai, nothing else exists besides for Hashem. What do you mean? We have this world that we inhabit, and we have daimim, tzemeya, chaim, medaber, nivroim, malachim, natzolim, neshamas, we have all of this going on. Okay, so it has to be explained. But the principal yesod of Chassidus is Achdus Hashem ein oid milvado. And if you look in Shara Yichud V'Amunah in Tanya, the Alter Rebbe begins with a famous pasuk from the Torah of Yadaita Hayom, V'ashivaisa levavecha, you should know today and take it to your heart, Ki Hashem hu ha'elikim, V'ashamayim imal v'alaretz mitachas ein oid. You should know that Havaya hu ha'elikim, ein oid, there's nothing else. And the Alter Rebbe explains there in Tanya that the understanding of this concept of Ein Oid, that there's nothing else besides for Hashem, to understand that, and we can understand it, and we will understand it. But the understanding of this concept, Ein Oid Milvado, that nothing exists besides for Hashem, is dependent on the understanding of Ki Hashem Hu Elikim. When we understand what the Zohar calls Havaya B'Elikim Kul Achad, that Shem Havaya, Shem Elikim, Havai v'elikim kul achad, it's all one and the same, then we'll understand that ein oid. And in Chassidus, there's many mamorim that talk about Ba'arichas Gedolah, this sugya of Havaya v'Elikim Kulachad. Most famously is the Maimer of Yodaita Moskva Tafresh Nun Zayin, where the Rebbe Rashab has a beautiful explanation on this concept. There's also a Maimer in Tafresh Samachei, Dibra HaMaskil Rei Karosi B'Shem. And for tonight's presentation, we're also going to draw from the Rebbe's Maimer, Godel Yiyah Tavshin Chafez. So if you want to know where the Makom from this year come from, it's these Mamorim. Yodaita Tafresh Nun Zayin, the Rebbe Rashab, Rei Karasi B'Shem Tafresh Samachei. We'll also draw from Shar Yechid V'Emunah, obviously, from Tiku Tafresh Samachalef, and the Rebbe's Maimer Godel Yiyah. And what we're going to see is that in the understanding of Havaya v'Elikim Kulachad, we have three layers of depth. We have the basic layer, which we'll call the Bir in V'Yodaita Moskva, Tafresh Nun Zayin. That's the standard Bir in Havaya v'Elikim Kulachad. Ba'oimek Yoser, on a much deeper Bir, we have in Samachei, Rei Karasi B'Shem. And finally, in the Rebbe's Maimer Godel Yiyah, we'll see a Chiddush Ha'olal Kulana Gar Atifer Oimek in this idea of Havaya v'Elikim Kulachad. And based on these three layers of understanding in Achdus Hashem, we'll come back to the Makom Hamikdash, to the specialness of the place where the Beis Hamikdash stood, and we'll understand that each of these explanations in Havaya v'Elikim Kulachad and Achdus Hashem add another layer of understanding and depth to the Makom Hamikdash. So this is the route that we're going. We mapped it out, and now we can get started. By the way, if anybody has questions, please feel free to interrupt me. And if the question is, it's always going to be a good question. If it's a question that's not going to steer us off topic, I will address it. And if it's going to steer us off topic, I'll ask you to come later. But don't be embarrassed to answer.
Just at the beginning, is Eretz Yisrael connected to the Makom Hamikdash, or Makom Hamikdash, are they two separate entirely?
Here we're discussing that on Har HaBayis, the Even HaShasiyah, the Makom Hamikdash itself.
Is that connected in any which way or to actual Eretz Yisrael?
No. It's in Eretz Yisrael.
Right, it's not connected.
No. In fact, we'll see that Eretz Yisrael gets its specialness from the Makom Hamikdash. Okay, so let's get stuck into the idea of Havaya v'Elikim Kulachad, the basic traditional biur that Chassidus gives us. Firstly, what is Shem Havaya? What is Shem Elikim? These are two names of Hashem, obviously, Yud Kei Vav Kei, Shem Elikim. We know already from the beginning of Chumash, Rashi tells us in the very beginning that Shem Havaya is Midas HaRachamim, Shem Elikim is Midas HaDin. But in the signon of Kabbalah, Shem Havaya represents anything associated with Gilui, with revelation, with Oyer, with light. It's the expansion of Elikus, Bligvul. It's the revelation of Hashem. Hashem reveals Himself, the infinite light of Hashem. This is Shem Havaya. So any darga in Elikus, any level in Elikus, which is somewhat to do with Gilui, is called Shem Havaya. That's why Midas HaRachamim is Shem Havaya, because when a person has Rachamim, when you have mercy on somebody, what do? You give. When you see a poor man and you feel bad, you give him. So it's the idea of giving, of hashpah, Gilui, revealing. That's Shem Havaya. Shem Elikim is the polar opposite of Shem Havaya. Midas, what we call in Chassidus and Kabbalah, it's Symptom. Holding back, concealing, hiding, stopping. Midas Hadin, it's the idea of judging. When you judge and you say, this person does not deserve the kindness, he doesn't deserve to receive what it is that is being offered, so you don't give him. So Midas Hadin is Shem Elikim. It's anything associated with Tzimtzum, with contracting, with concealing, with holding back, is Shem Elikim. So, at first glance, Havaya v'elikim, Shem Havaya, Shem Elikim, are total opposites. They work against each other. Shem Havaya is all about giving and flowing and revealing, and Shem Elikim is doing the opposite. He's holding back, he's cutting off, he's putting an end to it, he's limiting. Yet we say Havaya v'elikim kol echad. By the way, from which name of Hashem does the world come from? The creation of the world. Is it from Shem Havaya or Shem Elikim? Shem Elikim. If you look in the story of Ma'aseh Bereshis, the first column and a half of the Torah, Bereshis bara Elikim. Each of the Asarim Amoros start Vayomer Elikim, Yehi Oyer, Vayomer Elikim, Yehi Rakia, Vayomer Elikim, Tachi Oretz Vesha. Lamed Beis Pa'amim Shem Elikim. It says 32 times Shem Elikim in Ma'aseh Bereshis. There's not one mention of Shem Havaya until the end of creation. Eila Tolis Hashemayim V'Oretz V'Yom Asayis Havaya Elikim. But the entire creation is Kula Shem Elikim. It's all Shem Elikim. And why is that? We understand. Imagine the world came from Shem Havaya. What kind of world would you have, seemingly? A world which is totally godly, completely permeated with Elikus. Until you have something to stop, to block the Gilui Elikus, which is what Shem Elikim does, which is what Symptom does. So whatever you have is just continuing from the Eibishter. So you're not going to have a world which is something else. You're not going to have a world which is a yesh, that has a self-entity. You're going to have whatever you have is bottled to the Eibishter. It's part of Hashem. It's included within Hashem. It's a continuation of Hashem. That's not the world which we have. The world which we have is a yesh. It exists for itself. We are something else. We're not the Eibishter, seemingly. We're a davar chutz mimenu. We're outside of Hashem. How does that world come into existence? Only through Shem Elikim. Shem Elikim is the tzimtzum, puts a block, puts a stop on the Gilui Elikus. And this allows, now that you've limited, you've stopped, you've ended the Gilui of the Eibishter, now you have the ability to create something else which is not the Eibishter. So our world comes from Shem Elikim. In the Lashon of the Eitz Chaim says, the famous Eitz Chaim, that in the beginning, B'tchila, haya oirein seif mamali kol makom acholu. The unlimited light of Hashem filled the entire empty space. Not that there was space, but oirein seif was everything and everywhere. V'loi haya makom hamikdash oilemus. There was no room to put the oilemus. Not that there was begashmius, no space. What it means is the concept of a world, the concept of something outside of Hashem had no place. It couldn't be. As long as Oyer Ein Sof is everywhere, as long as the Eibishter's revelation and presence is felt throughout the entire stratosphere, there's no room for a yesh. There's no room for something to feel itself and not to feel the Eibishter. So what did the Eibishter have to do? Silek Oyer HaGodol Al Atzad. This is the Tzimtzum Harishon. The Eibishter made a grand Tzimtzum. He removed his light completely. V'nishar Cholul U'Makom Panui. What was left behind was this emptiness, a place void of godly light. There was no Elikus felt in that space. And in that place, which is void of the Eibishter, he put the world. So the Oyer Ein Sof, which we have at first, that's Shem Havaya. That's the Eibishter's revelation. He's everywhere. He's throughout everything. He's felt everywhere. Can't escape it. And in that situation, you cannot have Lo Hoya Makom Hamikdash Oilemus. There's no room to put Oilemus. You cannot have the existence of an Oilam as an independent existence. As long as you have Shem Havaya, it's just believable. It's Oyer. So you have to have the Tzimtzum, which is the Shem Elikim, to be mesalik, to remove the Eibishter's Oyer, create a place empty, kaviyachol of the Eibishter. And once you have Shem Elikim, now you've enabled the existence of a world, of a yesh, of something independent outside of Hashem. So this is the Shem Havaya and the Shem Elikim. They work seemingly, they're opposites. They don't go together. But now we can already see why the idea of Havaya Elikim Kulachad isn't just some Kabbalistical concept which matters in the Olam Yisrael. This is the very basic idea of Achdus Hashem. Why? Because as long as we believe, as long as we think that Havaya and Shem Elikim are actually opposites, they don't work together, then what do we in essence believe? That the Symptom works against the Gilui. And if the Symptom works against the revelation of Hashem, then what we actually have is a real Symptom, a place void of Elikus. And if you have a place void of Elikus, then what do you actually have? A world which exists. So as long as Shem Elikim is for real, as long as Shem Elikim is truly contradicting Shem Havaya and undoing the effect of Shem Havaya, and we truly have a Symptom, we truly have a place where there's no Elikus, then we truly have a world. We truly have something outside of Hashem. But if we understand that actually Havaya Elikim Kulachad, that Shem Elikim is actually in some way one with Shem Havaya, it's not working against Shem Havaya. It's all the same program. Or in other words, if we understand that the Symptom is lav kipshutai, the Symptom is not to be taken literally, that Shem Elikim does something, but whatever it does, it's not really getting in the way of Elikus. So if it's not really getting in the way of Elikus, if the Eibishter is still present, if the Oyer Ein Sof is still everywhere, if nothing's really changed, then just like before, when Oyer Ein Sof was everywhere, Makom Hamikdash, so the same thing is now. So that's why the understanding of Havaya Elikim Kulachad is crucial to understanding the very nature of the existence of the world. If Shem Elikim is taken too literally, if Symptom is taken literally, we have in actuality a world that is outside of the Eibishter, separate from Hashem. But if Symptom lav kipshuto, if Havaya Elikim Kulachad, then really Einod Milvadoi. There's still now today no Makom Hamikdash because Oyer Ein Sof is still everywhere like before. So how do we understand this?
This will be better.
It's too loud?
No, it's okay.
So in Tanya, the Alter Rebbe says, what's the basic idea here of Tzimtzum Lav Kipshuta? Was there a Tzimtzum or wasn't there a Tzimtzum? Did the Eibishter block his Oyer? Did he not block his Oyer? Did he remove the Oyer? Did he not remove his Oyer? So he says very simple. The Tzimtzum only matters, only makes a difference to us. It changes the way we feel, us being the Nivroim, the creations of Hashem. To us, the Tzimtzum matters. To us, the Symptom changes something. The Symptom creates the feeling within the creation that they are separate from Hashem. Why? Because the Symptom blocks the Oyer Ein Sof from being felt by us. And since we don't feel the Oyer of the Eibishter, so once we don't feel the Oyer of Hashem, what do we feel naturally? Ourselves. So the Symptom is legabeinu. The Symptom is to us that we shouldn't feel the Oyer, and since we don't feel the Oyer, we feel like a Metzias. We feel like now we exist. But legabe the Eibishter, to Hashem's perspective, the Symptom doesn't even happen. Doesn't do anything to Hashem. The Symptom doesn't conceal for Hashem. So when Hashem looks at what He created, when Hashem analyzes the same chol l'makom poni, so to speak, when Hashem looks at the same situation that we're looking at, what does Hashem see? The same Oyer Ein Sof that was there before is there now as well. Nothing changed. And if to the Eibishter the Oyer Ein Sof is everywhere still, then to the Eibishter there's no world. Because when Oyer and Seif is present, that's all that's felt. Nothing else is felt. Nothing else can exist outside of Hashem. So to understand this with a mashal, so in the Maimer Tov Reish Nun Zayin, the Rebbe Rashab explains it with a famous mashal of a Rav and a Talmud. We have a teacher, a real teacher, a real Rav, and he's trying to teach a Talmud, but this Talmud is what we call Be'ein Aroich, lower than the Rav. They're not on the same level at all. The Talmud is infinitely inferior to the Rav. So the Rav needs to explain to the Talmud concepts which to the Rav make perfect sense, that he understands, that he relates to, but to the Talmud, it's just, he can't relate. So what does he need to do to be able to explain the concepts to the Talmud? He needs to give him a mashal. Right? So we're now giving a mashal from the idea of a mashal. So a mashal for this. So let's say the Rav, he wants to explain to the Talmud, let's say that's just, I don't know, random example. Let's say it's he's a music teacher. Doesn't even have to be in Torah. Could be even outside. He's a music teacher. So the teacher is an expert musician who's already 75 years old, and he's been doing music since he was 5 years old, and he's played in every symphony and orchestra, and he's a composer, and his life, he lives, eats, breathes, talks, sleeps, music. Music is everything to him. So now he's getting a brand new student, a 7-year-old kid comes into his studio, and his first lesson. He wants to start learning music. He's never played an instrument in his life. It's his first day in class, and he wants to start learning music. So we see already there's this tremendous gap between the teacher and the student. So the teacher says to the student on day one, I want to tell you something, my student. The pleasure, the tainug that you can experience from a piece of music is amazing. The pleasure, the enjoyment that you can get from a good piece of music, it's bliss. It's just the ultimate pleasure. Right? So he's talking to the 7-year-old kid, and he's trying to explain to him that a piece of music, kid's never played music before, that the timing you have in music is amazing. The kid just won't be able to relate. What are you talking about? So the Rav gives him a mashal. He says, let me give you a mashal. You ate ice cream. When you eat ice cream, how do you feel? When I eat ice cream, I feel I have tainug. The texture, the color, the taste, right? He's mayrich and he's explaining all of the pratim. You take the ice cream and there's chocolate on the outside and there's vanilla on the inside, and the flavors coming together, and the blend, and the blend of texture, and the blend, and the kid is reliving his experience of the ice cream, and he could relate to the ice cream. He truly understands what does it mean to enjoy an ice cream. And the teacher finishes the mashal, and he says to him, so just like you understand that when you eat an ice cream, you experience this tainug from all of these different details that we discussed. I want to tell you that when you play a piece of music or you hear a piece of music and it's done properly and it's done well and the master does a good job, you will experience in this piece of music an even greater tainug. Okay, now the Talmud says, okay, fine, now I understand. Now, does the Talmud really understand tainug in music after the mashal? No. He understands the tainug in ice cream. That's his world. That's what he relates to. That's his life. He's never experienced tainug in music yet. He doesn't know what it feels like. It's not the same as tainug in ice cream. It's deeper. It's more edel. It's greater. But he understands from the mashal that the same way tainug is tainug. So yes, there's levels of tainug and there's a scale, and that's going to be greater, but he has some idea b'derech makif at least, what is it going to mean to have tainug in music? So let's look at the Rav's perspective now and the Talmud. To the Talmud, when he was given this mashal, does the mashal truly convey the depth of what does it mean to have tainug in music? Absolutely not. The Talmud walks away, he doesn't understand the depth of tainug in music. He understands tainug in ice cream. In fact, it's the opposite. The hagshama of the mashal is disturbing to the nimshal. How can you actually experience tainug in something ruchniistic, in something spiritual, in something edel, when your sense of tainug is very physical and very material? If your idea of tainug is ice cream, that's what you relate to, it's going to get in the way of you experiencing more edel tainug. So to the Talmud, the mashal is actually a helem vehester on the nimshal. The mashal conceals, to a certain degree, the true depth of the nimshal, which is the tainug in music. But it's okay. It's all the Talmud can handle, so that's what he gets. But we can see that from the perspective of the Talmud, when he walks out of class, he has a strong sense of tainug in ice cream. He does not yet have the true feeling of tainug in music. The nimshal is above him. The nimshal is concealed by the mashal. What about the Rav? Let's look at the Rav. The Rav, even before he gave the mashal, his world is music. He understands, he truly understands, he truly relates to tainug in music. To him it's a real thing. He's felt it before. He knows exactly what it feels like. It's called hasagas hamahus. He understands the mahus of tainug in music. But here's the question. When the Rav was explaining to the Talmud using the mashal of the ice cream, during those few minutes, he was talking about ice cream. So during those few minutes, was the Rav experiencing a helem vehester? While he was talking about the mashal, was the nimshal hidden from him? What's the answer? No. Since he knows what it is, so even when he's talking about ice cream, he's talking about ice cream, but what's he thinking about? Tainug in music, the nimshal. It's not getting in the way. And not only that, every description that the Rav says, when he says the combination of flavors, what does he mean in his mind? The combination of notes. The texture, the color, the taste, all of these pratim that he enumerates in the mashal, right away in his own mind, he translates them in the nimshal. So he's talking about ice cream. He's giving a mashal. The Talmud walks away only with a mashal for now. But at the very same moment, as the Rav is talking about ice cream, as he's elaborating on the mashal, he is experiencing at full force the nimshal. There's no concealment to him. Says the Rebbe Rashab, this is the idea of the Symptom lav kipshutai, or havai v'lekim kulachad. When the Eibishter makes a Symptom, it's like the Rav giving a mashal. So what happens? The recipient, which is us, the creations, the worlds, the people, we're on the receiving end. The Eibishter gave us a mashal. So on the receiving end, what do we have? We only have the mashal. We don't see the nimshal. We come away with ice cream. So we're megushim. We're grub. We feel ourselves. We feel like we exist. But that's only to us. In the eyes of the Eibishter, the Rav, when he made the Symptom, he sees right through it. As he's creating the Symptom, as he's creating this Makom Hamikdash, this place where his presence is not felt, in that itself he feels himself. Again, just like when the Rav gives the mashal, he's creating a mashal which to the Talmud will be lacking the nimshal. The Talmud will receive a very physical explanation of tainug, not the real explanation of tainug as tainug is in music. The Talmud space, so to speak, will be missing the real oir, the real oimek. But to the Rav himself, it will be there. Same thing with the Eibishter and us. When the Eibishter makes it Symptom and he removes his oir, the oir is only removed legabe us, who we receive. We're on the receiving end of the Symptom. So to us, the reality that we're presented with, that we come away with, oh look, there's no light of Hashem. There's no Elikus. Oh, we exist. We're here. But to the Eibishter, in the very same space, in the very same world, in the very same Makom Panoi, in the very same Nivra, nothing to him, there's no concealment. He's talking about Bereshis Bara Lakim, Yehi Rakia, Tachi Oretz Desha. He's talking about Gashmistic things. He's talking about a world. But to him, what does it mean Rakia? What does it mean Oir? What does it mean Tachi Oretz Desha? All of these things in them, what does the Eibishter see? What does the Rav see? The full impact of the Nimshal, the full Oir and Soif is there. Nothing is held back. And since to the Eibishter, which that's the true perspective, even after the Tzimtzum, even after he creates seemingly a Nivra, within all of that, he sees the full impact of Elikus, the full Gilui Elikus, the full Oir Ein Sof. Like the Rav sees the Nimshal in the Moshel. So to the Eibishter, Einoid Mulvada, nothing else exists. The ice cream exists. Within that, all he sees is the Taina Gruchni in the Moshel. Al Derech Zahir. Within the Makom Pani, what does the Eibishter see? Weiter Oir Ein Sof. It's all Oir Ein Sof. And so all there is his revelation, his light. It's him. It's only him. So this is the idea of Havai V'Lekim Kulachad. That Shem Elekim is really not concealing. The Tzimtzum is Lav Kipshuta. It's for real to us. But for real, Shem Elekim isn't actually doing anything. Lagabe the Eibishter. Shem Havaya is still breaking through, just like before. And therefore, Einoid, nothing else exists besides for Hashem. So now let's come back to the Makom Hamikdash. Based on this understanding of Havai V'Lekim Kulachad Symptom Lav Kipshuta, let's go back to the Makom Hamikdash. We said before that the creation of the world comes from Shem Elekim. Right? Since we feel that we're a Nivra, we feel that we're a Yesh, we exist, we don't feel the Eibishter, we don't feel that we're part of the Eibishter. This comes from Shem Elekim. But the truth is, Chassidus says, it doesn't come from Shem Elekim itself. Shem Elekim doesn't have the power to create. The power to create Yesh Me'ayin, something from nothing, this is only B'Koyach Ein Sof. Only the Eibishter himself, in his infinite form, with his infinite power, can do something so incredible and remarkable like making Yesh Me'ayin, something from nothing. So, the creation, the power for creation, the idea of Hisabos comes from Shem Havaya. Shem Havaya actually Lashon Mahava. Yud Kei Vav Kei, that name of Hashem, from the same word Mahava, to create. But it doesn't come directly from Shem Havaya, it comes through Shem Elekim, through the Tzimtzum. Right? So the power of creation is the power of Shem Havaya, but it's being processed, it's being filtered through Shem Elekim, and therefore we get the creation of the world, and we get a world which feels like a Yesh. So, here's the punchline. First punchline. Everywhere else in the world, including right here where we're sitting right now, how is it? The way we said, it's from Shem Havai, but through Shem Elekim. And what does Shem Elekim do? Shem Elekim creates a Hester, creates a Tzimtzum to us. So what's the feeling we have sitting here right now? Not L'gabe the Eibishter. L'gabe the Eibishter we said Symptom Lav Kipshuta. To him, Shem Elokim is not master. But from the perspective of the creation, from the Nivra, from what does the Shem Elokim do? It allows the Nivra to feel, not to feel the Eibishter, and to therefore feel itself. So this is all the way it is everywhere else. What's the Chiddush in the Makom Hamikdash? What's the mile of the Makom Hamikdash? The mile of the Makom Hamikdash is that in that Gashmiistic place, in that physical space, even to us, even Lagabi the Nivra, even from the perspective of the Nivra, Shem Elokim is not master. So in the Makom Hamikdash, the Eibishter's perspective and our perspective is the same. Just like to the Eibishter, Shem Elokim is never master anywhere. And to the Eibishter, Shem Havaya is always present throughout everything, because again, the Eibishter sees the Nimshal in the Mashal. But that's to his perspective. From our perspective, however, the Mashal does conceal the Nimshal. So we don't feel the oil. But that's the way it is everywhere else. But in the Makom Hamikdash, where the Beis Hamikdash stood, even before the Beis Hamikdash was there, the wiring of that space, the mechanics of that space are different. The Eibishter created that space in Sheishis and Ebreshis a little different. There he did not allow Shem Elokim to be master at all, even to our perspective. So even to the Nivra, even to the Mata, even from the look of the Talmud, so to speak, in the Makom Hamikdash, the Nimshal can be seen. The Nimshal is not concealed. And the full impact of Shem Havaya, of Eir Ein Sof, is felt, the Gashmius, in the Makom Hamikdash. What's the source for this? The source for this is in Parshas Vayetze. Story time. Right? Parshas Vayetze. What happened? Yaakov Avinu leaves Be'er Sheva, the home of his father Yitzchak, and is going to Choron. On the way, he makes a stop. He has no idea where he's stopping, but he finds a mountain, arranges the rocks around his head, and he goes to sleep. And he has the famous dream. He sees the ladder, the malachim are going up and down, and he has a vision. Hashem comes to him, right? And he has a nevuah. So what happens? Vayikatz Yaakov mishnasai. Yaakov woke up from his sleep. Listen to these words. Vayomer, and he said, Ochen yesh havaya b'mokim hazeh. Indeed, there is havaya in this space. V'anoichi lo yadati, and I didn't know. So what do we see? What's unique, even in the times of Yaakov Avinu, it's thousands of years before the Beis Hamikdash was built. Yaakov went to sleep unknowingly, V'anoichi lo yadati, and something happened. Because he slept in that space, he falls asleep, the Eibishter comes to him, Malachim, Asulam, Utzav Arza, he's having nevuah. Why? Ochen yesh havaya b'makom hazeh. He, B'ashgacha Pratis, found himself in a place where even Lagabe Nivraim, there's no Helen V'Hester. Even from the perspective of the creation, there's no concealment. So b'meili, he had nevuah. Of course he had nevuah. The Eibishter is revealed in that space. Ochen yesh havaya b'makom hazeh. Next pasuk. Vayira, he became afraid. Vayomer, and he said, Manoira hamakim hazeh. How awesome is this place? Ein zeh kiim beis elikim, v'zeh shar hashamayim. Okay? Manoira hamakim hazeh. Says Targum Onkelos, on these words, Manoira hamakim hazeh, leis dein asar hedyet. This is not a simple place. Hedyet, right? Like a kohen hedyet. This is less than us. This is not a simple space. It's not a common space. We know from the Zohar that the Asara Mamoris are called Milin de Hedyaita. Why? Because for the Eibishter to create the world, it's no big deal. It's for Hashem, it's simple words. Imagine a tremendous chacham, the biggest chacham you can imagine. Right? And he gets up and he says, Rabbi say, I want you to know that if you take a balloon and you put a needle in the balloon, it's going to pop. Right? Narishkeit. So what would we say? Did this chacham right now advertise his gadlus? Did we just get a glimpse into the amazing chacham? No. we'd say it's sichas chulin. It's milan de hedyoita. He's messing around. He's child's talk. It's not who he is. So the Zohar says for the Eibush, the Asara Mamoris, right, to us, wow, you created the world with Asara Mamoris. You say you hear Rakia and boom, you have the Rakia. So for us, it's like a huge thing. But for the Eibush, it's milan de hedyoita. Hashem's playing around. For Hashem to create the world is nothing. Child's play. So what do I see? What's Yaakov saying? Manoira hamakim hazeh less day nasar hedyet. This is not an asar hedyet. Meaning what? It doesn't come from the asar mamoros. What does he mean? It comes from the asar mamoros. But what does he mean? It's unlike everywhere else. Everywhere else, vayomer lekim yehi rakia, vayomer lekim yehi oy, vayomer lekim tachi arz deshe. Everywhere else, the asar mamoros, aka shem lekim, conceal. To us, don't allow the Nivra to feel the Eibishter. But in this, Makom Hamikdash says, Yaakov, less than Asar Hedyet. This is not an Asar Hedyet. It's not coming from the Asar Mamoros. Because here, Shem Elikim is not master at all. And Shem Achen Yeshavai b'Makom Hazeh. It's give the Shem Havai. This is the mind of the Makom Hamikdash. And again, this is Pashas Vayetzei, way before the Beis Hamikdash was built. This was unique, built in from Sheishis and Vibrations, a different wiring in the creation of the Makom Hamikdash. Where did we see this in the actual Makom Hamikdash? In the Beis Hamikdash. Where do we see in the Beis Hamikdash properties, so to speak, of Shem Havai? That it's different to everywhere else. Where was it expressed? Okay, by Yaakov had Nevuah. Okay, but in the actual Beis Hamikdash, where did we see something unique? How? So the Nisim, right? Very good. The Asar Nisim in the Beis Hamikdash. Exactly. And most of all, the biggest ness was the idea of Makom Ha'aron Eina Min Hamida. Right? In short, what that means was that the Kodesh HaKadoshim measured 20 amas. Okay, from wall to wall, from north to south was 20 amas. And in middle stood the Aron. The Aron was 2.5 amas. So if you would measure from the end of the Aron to the wall on one side, you should have how much? 8.5 or 8 3/4, right? Or 7 3/4. I'm not even thinking. Whatever, a certain number less than 10, because the Aron took up 2.5 amas. And from the other side of the Aron to the other wall should be also a number less than 10. But in reality, if you measured from the end of the Aron to the wall on each side, it was 10 amas. And if you measured the Aron, it was 2.5. And if you went wall to wall, it was 20. So completely defy the properties of space. Makom Ha'aron Eina Min Hamida. So that was an actual expression of this idea that Shem Havaya wasn't concealed in this place. Why? The idea of Zman u'Makom, time and space, as we know it, that comes from Shem Elikim. Shem Elikim allows for there to be a past, a present, a future, north, south, east, west, time and space, properties of time and space. Mitzad Shem Havaya, what do we say? What's Havaya? Haya, Hayve, V'yeh Ke'echad. Past, present, and future are all one. Which, if you're Medayik, doesn't mean there's no Zman at all. There is Zman, there is Hayve, there is Avar, there is Asid, Haya, Hayve, V'yeh, but it's Ke'echad. Why are we saying that there is Zman? Because if the Eibishter Shem Havai wants to make Zman, he'll make Zman. Shem Havai is not limited. If he wants to make Avar, Hayve, V'asid, he'll make it. But why is it Ke'echad? Because since from the perspective of Shem Havai, everything is the Eibishter, nothing is itself. So when something is created from Shem Havai, what is the feeling of that thing from Shem Havai? It doesn't feel its own existence. It feels, what am I? The Eibishter made me. That's all I am. I don't have my own idea, my own importance. I'm not worth something by myself. I'm not a something unto myself. From the perspective of Shem Havaya, lo hoya makom hamikdash. All there is the Eibishter. So if the Eibishter goes and makes something, that thing falls right into Elikus. What is the nature of that thing? What is the meaning of that thing which he creates? It's him. So if Avar, Hoive, V'asid are all just the Eibishter, so it's Ke'echad. When is Avar, Hoive, V'asid different? When do they contradict each other, so to speak? When the Avar feels that he's Avar, and the Asid feels he's Asid. And each of them is holding on to their own idea. I'm the past, I'm the future. Okay, so we can't come together. But mitzad Shem Havai, when everything is bottled betachlis to the Eibishter, when everything feels that all they are is an extension of the Eibishter, so we're all one. Oisa Shalom Bim Raimov. The Eibishter makes Shalom Bim Raimov, even Michael Sar Shalmayim and Gabriel Sar Shalesh, it's Oisa Shalom. Because once you have the recognition that we're both not because of ourselves, we're both products of the same Eibishter, so it's Hoya Hoya V'yeh Ke'echad. Same thing in Makom. When is Makom each place for itself? It's at Shem Elikim. But when you have the Gili of Shem Havaya, then you can have within the properties of Makom, within the space of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Makom Aram Eina Min Amida. It's not taking up space. Because mitzad Shem Havaya, just like Hoya Hoya V'yeh is Ke'echad, so the Makom is Ke'echad. So I don't want to get too carried away with this explanation because we only have 10 minutes. But that's the Nakudah. That the idea of Makom Ha'or and Eina Min Amida was a physical expression in the space where the Beis Hamikdash stood. There was literally space-defying properties in the space. Because there was a Gili of Shem Havaya. Shem Elikim did not conceal. Shem Havaya was Begolui. And therefore, there was this idea of L'mayla min ha'makom within the makom. Okay, so that was the basic standard explanation. You'll find this in many places in Chassidus. Not much chidushim here. And we understand Achdus Hashem, we understand Symptom Lav Kipshutai, the Ma'il of the Makom Hamikdash, Makom Eina Min Amida, and we're good. However, here comes Chiddush number 1. Based on what we said before, based on the Maimer in Samachei, Rei Karasi B'Shei. We're not going to have time, okay, but we'll get started. It's a very geshmak nekuda. In Samachei, the Rebbe Rashab goes back to the moshel of the Rav and the Talmud that we discussed before. That when the Rav and the Talmud are Be'ein HaRoich, he asked that the Rav has to give a moshel. And we said before that there's the perspective of the Talmud and the perspective of the Rav. To the eyes of the Talmud, the moshel conceals the nimshal. The moshel doesn't convey to him the full depth and impact of the nimshal. But to the Rav, he sees everything. Says the Rebbe Rashab, one second. B'med dvarim amurim, when can you say that the Rav sees the full nimshal within the moshel? When can you say that? You can say that when the Rav is being mashpia already to the Talmud. When he's talking to the Talmud, when he's delivering the moshel to the Talmud, you can say he's talking about chocolate, about ice cream, but he's thinking about music, as we said before. But what about the few moments that it took the Rav to think of the moshel? Let's rewind before the Rav came to class. The Rav was sitting at home preparing the class. Right, so the Rav was thinking the nimshal, tainuk, music, edelkeit, ruchnius, right? How did he come to ice cream? The Rav to ice cream, he has no shaykhs to ice cream. To that level of aksham. How did he find the oisius for the moshel? How did he find the verbiage that's so inferior to his level? How did he put himself into the shoes of the Talmud to even invent the moshel? In fact, so in Tafresh Samachalev, Tikus Samachalev, the Rebbe Rashab explains that to think of the moshel, what the Rav needs to do, the Rav has to, for those few moments, completely forget his own sefer. He has to blank out in his head from all of his ideas, And only when the Rav has a total siluk by himself, he's not thinking at all about his own seichel. It's blank. There's nothing going on in the mind of the Rav. That is what allows him to then step into the shoes of the Talmud and say, okay, now that I have nothing going on here, imagine I was a Talmud, what would I relate to? Oh, ice cream, okay. Then he invents the mashal. And once he has the mashal formulated, then he can turn the switch back on and allow his own seichel to turn back on, bring back his level of understanding, and then they can go together. The Rav can talk about ice cream and he can mean music. He can talk about the mashal, but he can mean the nimshal. That's all after he's already invented the words of the mashal. But in order for him to invent the mashal, to find the mashal, to put himself into the shoes of the Talmud, to find the right words, for those few moments he has to have a total helem ba'atzma, he has to totally turn himself off, so there's no light, no seichel happening in his head, and that allows him to then find the mashal, and then he can bring his seichel back. And he says there in Samachal, the same thing is by the Symptom. The Eibishter had to make a helem ba'atzma. The Eibishter made a total concealment by himself, to sort of blank himself out. And then he was able to find the oil which is shaykh to the oilemus. But then, Chazar v'heir, the Eibishter brought everything back. He turned the switch back on, and the whole oil and seif came back. And when he actually went to create the world, the oil and seif was already revealed again within the Eibishter. So, in other words, he's being machalik between what we call b'shas ha-tzimtzum and la'achar ha-tzimtzum. La'achar ha-tzimtzum, once the tzimtzum is done, once the mashal has been formulated, then it's true that the Rav can bring back his seichel and he can see within the mashal the full nimshal. But be'es ha-tzimtzum, b'shas ha-tzimtzum, and it says this in Samach Aleph, it's not just our own logic telling us this. B'shas ha-tzimtzum, the Rav does have to experience a total blackout of his own seichel. And in that moment when he finds the mashal, what is he thinking about? Only the ice cream, only the mashal. And in that moment, he's not seeing the nimshal in the mashal. He's only seeing the mashal. He's forgotten about the nimshal. He's removed it from his head. It's only coming back later. So in Samachay, the Rebbe Rashab says, so how could this be? If you say this, so what does it mean? That in a certain aspect, the tzimtzum is kipshuta. There is a certain nakuda, there is a certain place, not a physical place, but there is a certain darge in the Eibishter, a certain mode in the Eibishter where for a few moments, and there's no zman there, so it's everlasting. There's a nakuda in the Eibishter where be'es ha-tzimtzum, b'shas ha-tzimtzum, he did truly not see the Oir Ein Sof. And during that moment, the Oilemus came into being for real. In that moment, all there is Oilemus. So yes, it's true that after that, he brought back the Oir Ein Sof. And so once the Oir Ein Sof came back, it's mevatel everything. But that happened after. B'shas ha-tzimtzum, what's happening then? How could it be that there's a moment of tzimtzum, chas v'sholem, he says chas v'sholem, that tzimtzum kipshutai, that for a moment, and again, it's not a moment in zman, it's a moment that's everlasting. There's a nakud in the Eibishter, but the tzimtzum actually means he doesn't feel the oir, he doesn't see the oir in soif, and the mashal emerges and he experiences oilemus as oilemus are. Kash is understood. So he explains there a moyerdika answer. He says that there's a difference between the mashal of a Rav and a Talmud and the nimshal the way it is by the Eibishter. We're going to kind of split hairs here. Let's go back to the Rav and the Talmud. To the Rav and the Talmud, the Rav's world is music, right? As we said before. That's his reality. He has no concept of ice cream whatsoever. It's totally foreign to him. He can't even think of it. So why does he have to blank out? Why does he have to remove his seichel in order to find the oisius of the mashal? There's two reasons. One, mitzad the chetza of the seichel, and one mitzad the Gavra, the Rav himself. The first reason is because as long as the seichel of the music is shining, as long as the edelkeit of Tainug is present, the more megushim dike Tainug cannot emerge. As long as you feel Tainug on a more edel, in a more edel way, as long as you feel Tainug in a more refined way, you're not capable of feeling, you're not capable. The feeling of Tainug in a Megushavdika form cannot be formed. It's a chesaron in the Seichel itself. When the Rav's Seichel is shining, and the Rav's understanding is the way it is on his level, any other understanding will be nullified within the greater understanding. It's like if somebody taught you a pshat in Chumash, right? That's a little deeper than the simple pshat. Once you see the deeper pshat, it's like you can no longer see the simple pshat anymore. Because the deeper pshat is the deeper pshat of the simple pshat. So the whole simple pshat became deeper, became illuminated. Can't be separated anymore. Once you saw a tifkeit, once you saw an oimek, that's a new understanding. It's the depth of the pshat. The pshat is no longer the same pshat that it was when you were 5 years old. Even if you tried now to go back to your understanding as you understood Chumash as a kid, you won't be able to. Why? Because you have a greater understanding, that greater understanding won't allow a lesser understanding to be formed. Because any lesser understanding will be caught up and consumed and nullified and become part of the greater understanding. So the reason why the Rav won't be able to think of the ice cream, the Tainug in ice cream, because if he's reliving the Tainug that he has in music, and that's the feeling of Tainug that he experiences, that he knows, any other feeling of Tainug won't be felt. It will be swept up and carried away and is battled by the greater seichel. That's one chesar. The second chesar is that even if, imagine, that seichel would emerge, even if the lower seichel would emerge, the Rav wouldn't be able to relate to it. Because he's the Rav, because he's so great and he's so spiritual and he's so infinite and he's so refined, even if somebody like inserted it into his brain, look, here you have the tainug of the chocolate, of the ice cream, here you have the tainug of the music, they're not going to be swallowed up one by the other, the chefza is staying apart. But to the Gavra, to the Rav, he can't relate to it. What do you mean? Since his world is tainug in music, what is that? He doesn't even know what it is. Tainug in ice cream? Ice cream can't be pleasurable. Ice cream is garbage. So in the mashal, yes, it's hard to separate because one means the other. But in the nimshal, look what he says. He says in the nimshal to the Eibishter, let's go back to Kaidem at Symptom. Before the Symptom, what did we say? Iron Soif was everywhere, right? Why is there no Makom Hamikdash? Why? There's no Makom Hamikdash because Oilams cannot emerge from within Iron Soif. As long as Iron Soif is meir, as long as Iron Soif is revealed, is present, is shining, is strong, is everywhere, Oilams can't emerge from the chefts of the Iron Soif. Again, like the Pashta Seichel is in his battle in the deeper Seichel, like the Pshat becomes lost in the Tifkeit. So, Kaidem at Symptom, why couldn't there be Makom Hamikdash when Iron Soif was meir? Because as they would emerge, they would become swept up and swallowed up and included and part of the Iron Soif. They can't emerge as something independent. They're in this battle within the deeper level. So the chesaron is in the chefta, but there's no chesaron in the gavra, meaning to the Eibishter himself. Ilu Yitzuyir, the chitzonius could separate. If the chefta didn't have the problem, if somehow the Makom La'olamus was able to emerge from the Iron Soif, the Eibishter would have been able to, so to speak, understand it, to grasp it, because the Eibishter is Kol Yachol. He's anything and everything. So the reason why you have to have it Symptom when you have the Iron Soif everywhere is not because the Eibishter can't find the Oilama, so to speak. The Eibishter has a chesara. The Eibishter can't see the oilamus. Like the Rav can't see the tainug in the ice cream because to him tainug means tainug in music. No. The Eibishter would have been able to see it. The chesara is only in that the oir, the chitzonistic oir, the Makom Hamikdash oilamus can't emerge from the oir inside because as they come out, they're vitamin battle. As the pshat, as you go back to your understanding of Chumash as a 5-year-old, you again see the same understanding that you have now, and you cannot separate them anymore. So therefore, what does he say? That Symptom, even we say that that the Rav has to experience a helem la'atzmai, a concealment to himself. Lamaila, what is it in the mashal? It means that the Rav has to actually blank out, and the Rav himself doesn't see his own seichel while he's inventing the mashal. But in the Nimshal, by the Eibishter, to the Eibishter himself, he could always see Iron Seif, and he always sees Iron Seif. The light remains on to the Eibishter, so to speak, and even while the Iron Seif is meir at all times, the Eibishter can find the Makom Hamikdash oilamus, even without the Symptom. So why is there a Symptom? The Symptom is because in the Chefza, because if you don't shut off the oil, like we said, the Chitzonis won't be able to separate. The oilamus won't be able to separate. So to them, there needs to be the switch turned off. So in the mashal of the Rav and the Talmud, it's like we would say that why does the teacher have to shut off his understanding of tainug in music? Because if he doesn't, although he sees the tainug in the ice cream, the tainug in the ice cream can't separate and become something, because as soon as it does become something, it will become lost again in the tainug of music. So that's the way it is. That's how it is by the Eibishter. The Symptom is only legabi the lower oyer, legabi the oyer hashayach l'ha'olamus. For that to emerge, there has to be a moment of hell. But to the Eibishter himself, at all times, that's Symptom lav kipshutai. At all times, he sees the Oren Seif everywhere. There's never a moment where he doesn't see the Oren Seif, and therefore there's never a moment when the Olam is suffering. So now let's just bring this back to the Makom Hamikdash. So why does this give us a deeper understanding in the Makom Hamikdash? This is the Rebbe's Chiddush. Why does this change the understanding of the mind of the Makom Hamikdash? Here's why. As long as we were saying only like before, the standard explanation that Shem Elikim is not mastir, right? Shem Elikim doesn't conceal. Shem Havaya is revealed in the Makom Hamikdash. But what does that mean? Does that mean, let's use again the mashal. What does that mean? It means that the Rav, not only is the Rav seeing the nimshal in the mashal, right? The Talmud is also seeing the nimshal in the mashal. But is the mashal a keli for the nimshal? Is he seeing the nimshal within the mashal, or is he seeing it despite? Is it because Shem Havaya overpowers Shem Elikim and overrides Shem Elikim and is therefore present? Or does Shem Elikim itself allow within itself the flow and the revelation of Shem Havaya? As long as we thought like before that Symptom for even a moment is true by the Eibishter, let's say B'shasat Symptom, when the Eibishter actually has to invent a mashal, right? He needs to block out his own seichel, so to speak. So what does that mean? So what does that tell us? That at the end of the day, the Gili of the Eibishter and the Symptom are a stira. One doesn't allow the other. Since one doesn't allow the other, the only way he can find the oasis for the mashal is by blocking out his own seichel completely. So therefore, even when he brings back the oyer is coming back. But remember, Shem Elikim in its root, the Symptom in its root opposes Shem Havaya. As long as the Rav is thinking his own seichel, he can't find the mashal. He needs to block out his seichel to find the mashal. What does that mean? That in truth, they're not really in sync. But when he brings back the Oren Soif, when he looks back at the mashal, he'll see the nimshal. Meaning what the Shem Havaya Shem Elikim won't block. Shem Elikim won't be mastir. But saying Shem Elokim won't be mastir isn't the same as saying Shem Elokim is allowing it in, it's a keli, absorbs it. It's just not getting in the way, like Shem Elokim overpowers it. But once we say the word of Samachay, that even b'shas Symptom, the Eibishter throughout the Symptom sees the Ein Sof. There's never a moment where he can't see the Eilamus. Even the Ein Sof is there, he can find it. They don't contradict each other. It's only a problem for the Eir itself to be able to emerge. But to the Eibishter's eyes, he always sees the Nimshal and the Moshel. They're in sync, they go together. So what does that mean? That in the Makom Hamikdash, it's not just that Shem Elokim overruns Shem Havai, that Shem Elokim isn't mastir. It's a keli. Shem Elokim allows for Shem Havai. They go together. So it's not just that the mile of the Makom Hamikdash is that Shem Havaya overruns Shem Elokim, as opposed to everywhere else where Shem Elokim blocks, here Shem Havaya breaks through. But in fact, the Makom Hamikdash itself, the Makom Gashmi, the Shem Elokim, the physical manifestation of the Makom Hamikdash is a keli and receives within it and allows within it and works in sync, perfectly in sync with Shem Havaya. Okay, I'm afraid that the best part is going to have to be cut out. It's really a shame. But we already went over time. Unless the organizers want to give us 5 more minutes. Huh? Okay, 5 more minutes. Bekitzer, if you didn't have in the Bekitzer, you can come to me after. Comes along the Rebbe says that whatever we spoke until now, all of that ain't nothing. Okay? There is an entirely different understanding in Havai V'Elokim Kul Echad, completely different than what we said until now, and this truly shakes up the idea of the Makom Hamikdash. Until now, we're working with the premise that what's the real Eibishter? Shem Havaya, Gilui, Bligvul, Ein Sof, Bittul, that's the Eibishter. That represents the Eibishter. Shem Elokim gets in the way. Yesh, Metzias, that's anti-Eibishter. So, but what? The Tzimtzum is the bad guy. But how does the whole thing work out? You say, don't worry, Tzimtzum lav kipshutai. Right? It's not for real. Shem Elokim isn't really master. Right? It's not really blocking anything. Really, Shem Havaya is to the Eibishter, it's everywhere. So the whole beer until now is basically is going on the premise that the real Eibishter is expressed in Shem Havaya. Shem Elokim is against the Eibishter, but don't worry, Shem Elokim is not for real. Says the Rebbe, there's another beer based on Tanya Shar Yichud V'Emunah, but it's not really mefurish there. In Perek Vav, there's another beer which is completely different. The truth of the matter is that both Shem Havaya and Shem Elokim are both Shmoisam Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They're both names of Hashem. Neither one of them is the Eibishter himself. Don't think that the Eibishter is Ein Sof, is Gilui, is Bligvul, is Bittul, and everything else that's Tzimtzum, Hagbola, Helen Vehester, Yeshes is not the Eibishter. The Eibishter himself is L'mayla Mishem Havaya, L'mayla Mishem Elokim. He's above both. And Havaya and Elokim are both two tracks, two names that Hashem has. Hashem has a track of Gilui and a track of Helen. They're both equally Him. Let that sink in. The same way, Oyer is Elikus, and Bittul is Elikus, and Bligvul is Elikus. By the very same token, Tzimtzum, Helem, and Yeshes is Elikus. And it has to be that way. We think that Yeshes means the lack of Elikus. When there's no Elikus, what is there? Nothing. No concepts exist when there's no Eibishter. Hashem created all the concepts. Any musik that you can think of comes from the Eibishter. If there's no Eibishter, there's nothing at all. So what are you going to say? Bittul b'mitzias, that's the Eibishter. Yeshes is not. So what is Yeshes? The idea of Tzimtzum, of Helen Vehester, of feeling a Yesh, that's also from the Eibishter. In Basa Lagani he says that the hergish that we have here in this world, that mitziyusay me'atzmusay, that we come from ourselves, that we only feel ourselves, that's directly from atzmus u'muhus, that mitziyusay me'atzmusay. Or in the language of the Rambam, meyamit hasimotze nimtze kol hanimtzoyim. The yesh hanivra that feels himself, that doesn't feel the Eibishter, that's also the Eibishter. The musag of yeshes, of metzias, of feeling yourself, is equally a legitimate extension, derivative of Elikus, just like Oir and Bitul and Bligvul is a derivative of Elikus. We say Ein Sof is Shlilas everything. Shlilas HaGvul, Shlilas HaBligvul, Chiyuv, Shlilas, it's above everything and everything comes from it. So B'meila, this is the deeper pshat in Havai V'Elikim Kulachad. Not like before, that why is Havai V'Elikim Kulachad? Because Shem Elikim is not mastir, because the Symptom is Lav Kipshutai. Says the Rebbe, no. You could have the Symptom Kipshutai. You could have a real Helen V'Hester. You could have a real Metzias of a Yesh. Where'd that come from? Tzvai to the Eibishter. Atzmus u'muhus is expressed in two kavim. L'mayla and ketz l'mata and tachlis. The ultimate gilui and the ultimate concealment. The ultimate concealment, the ultimate hergesh of yesh is equally elikus as is Shem Havaya, as is gilui. So when this is felt within Shem Havaya and Shem Elikim, when within Shem Elikim and within Shem Havaya it's felt, not their own inyan, that my inyan is gilui, my inyan is tzimtzum. When they feel their own inyan, then the only way to bring them together is to say Shem Elikim is not master. But once we can introduce what we call Gilui Ha'atzmus, which is La'asid Lavai, when Mashiach comes, Gilui Ha'atzmus, and within Seder Hishtalshlus, within Shem Havaya, within Shem Elikim will be Nizgala, Oiras Bekelim, within Seder Hishtalshlus, Amitas Ha'atzmus, and Mitzad Amitas Ha'atzmus, Oir and Gilui and Symptom and Hester and Bittul and Yesh are both equally him. So then Havai V'Elikim Kulachad, not because Shem Elikim is not master, because Shem Elikim and Shem Havaya both are not what they seem to be. Both are really Shmoyso Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'mayla Mishnei. And according to this, the mile of the Makom Hamikdash is not only mitzad Shem Havaya, but the mile of the Makom Hamikdash is that the emes of Shem Elikim itself will be Nizgala. When the emes of Shem Elikim is Nizgala, then what happens? The Mata itself, not because the Mata, it's revealed that the Mata isn't really the Mata. Because Shem Havaya breaks through, Shem Havaya comes through. It's going to be revealed that the Mata itself, as a Mata, as a Yesh HaNivra, that feels itself, that has his chalkus, that has Agbola, has all the limitations of a Mata, that itself is Atzmus U'Mus and Sabaruch. And then the Makom Oren Eina Min Amida, not because there's a Shem Havai L'mayla Min HaMakom. The Makom Oren Eina Min Amida because of the Makom itself. It's a Herzach on in Makom Gufa, that what is Makom al Shem Elikim, al Tzmitzias of Makom, that it's Margish itself, that Ha Gufa is the Eibishter. But that beer is reserved for La'asid Lava, because now within Seder Shtalshlus we don't feel that. So now we have to, and that's the simple Hezbollah Chassidus, Havai V'Elikim Kulachad, like Yodaitam and Zayin. That Shem Elikim is not master. But La'asid Lava, the mile of the Mikdash HaShlishi, the Makom of the Beis Hamikdash HaShlishi will be that it will be Nizgala, not how there's Shem Havaya in the Makom Hamikdash. Rather, the mile of the Mata itself, the Shem Elikim itself, Hanasham Nizaynus Min HaGuf, the mile of the Guf itself, the Mata itself. Okay, I profusely apologize for going over time.